Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. If you're just joining us, this week we've been answering You Asked For It questions that came in through the members of Shrewsbury Assembly of God Church in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania. However, if you are only a Daily Dose watcher, awesome. We love your viewership. However, you can even email in questions and we can get those answered at office@shrewsburyassembly.org. Pastor Nabil is answering questions through sermons on Sunday mornings through the end of the month. And then we're also answering questions through our Daily Dose videos each morning. So today, listen to the question that came in. Why does the Old Testament go from a higher number to 0? How does this make sense? How did people know what was to come? What an interesting question. Well, I had to do a little research because I didn't even know the answer to the first part of that question, why the calendar went from a higher number to 0. Listen to this. This system of the BC AD, it gained popularity in the 9th century after the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne adopted the system for dating the government throughout Europe. By the 15th century, all of Western Europe had adopted this BC AD system, okay? So the first thing to understand as far as the question goes is in Bible times, in the Old Testament times, they weren't dating the years like that, okay? So it wasn't like Abraham knew what year it was and that the years were getting smaller, okay? This wasn't established until generations, not until centuries later. The references AD and BC are sometimes replaced by CE or even BCE among Christians. This is the Common Era and before the Common Era. The Roman calendar was counted from the foundation of the city in 753 BC and continued in use until the Anno Domini calendar was introduced in AD 525. Now, scholars believe that Jesus himself was born in about 6 BC to 4 BC, somewhere in that range. The question that comes up a lot was there a year 0? There actually was not. It went from 1 BC and then the next year was 1 AD. So there was never a year 0. And with this system, it is believed by scholars that Jesus' ministry and then his death and resurrection happened somewhere around the time of 30 to 36 AD. Give or take a couple years. Interesting stuff. But really what I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about is the second part of that question. The second part was, how did people know what was to come? Such a great question. You know, back in Bible times, oral transfer of information was the most popular. They obviously didn't have books, they didn't have the internet, and so what they did is they orally, verbally passed down information from generation to generation. What an important principle to have the parents relate to the children and the children relate to their children. And that's how they knew what was to come. Throughout the Old Testament, we see God using so many prophets, people that came and spoke on the behalf of God. God would speak to them, that individual, and they would go proclaim it to the masses. But there was an understanding back then that it was then the individual's job to pass that information down. Listen to what the Bible says in Psalms chapter 78, verses 5 through 7. It says, "He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds, but would keep his commands." Powerful challenge to all of us. You know, even though technology has made many things available, even though we have books, even though we have all sorts of resources at our disposal, isn't the best way to tell others about what the future holds, the truth of God, the resurrection and saving grace of Jesus Christ, is for us to tell others. Don't let the truth of Jesus end in your generation, but tell the generation after you so that they can tell the generation after them, so that we can let people know who Jesus is and what he wants to do in their life. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope to see you again tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.